Welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Conscious Breathwork, the 7-week Journey of the Alchemist to Renew Your Wellbeing. This is Nadira Ade, and it is my pleasure to be hosting this hour-long Q&A call for the Shift Network, where we will explore the teachings of Anthony Abbagnano and address questions about his upcoming 7-week course, which begins next Tuesday, June 16th. Later, I will explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. But first, let me take a moment to introduce our special guest. With 40 years of personal breathing practice and exploration, Anthony has explored many different styles of the breath, including rebirthing, Laboyer, holotropic, transformational, Sufi breathing, and pranayama. Now he brings his life experience of motivational speaking, clinical hypnotherapy, body talk therapy, conscious loving coaching through the Hendricks Institute, sound healing, and medicine, as well as aromatherapy to his breathwork teaching and training. As a result of his own healing journey, including his survival and transformation from a near-death experience, Anthony holds tender space for the depth of journey that some need to make as part of their healing path, transforming what has troubled them in the past into joy and ecstasy that a breathwork practice provides. In just a few moments, we're going to open up for questions, but first, let me welcome Anthony, who will begin our call by leading us in an opening practice. Anthony, welcome to the call.
Oh, bless you, Nadira. Thank you. And what an honor it is to be here with you and the Shift Network and all those wonderful people that are checking us out right now. So I'm excited to answer questions, most of all because you never know what they'll be, and that's it makes it a bit different. So I'm excited to be with you and to answer what I can for you. But first, perhaps we could spend 3 or 4 minutes and drop in a little bit with our breath and come into the same kind of vibrational space together. So what that will look like is being comfortable, whatever that means for you. You can be lying down or sitting up, and just to close your eyes, let your eyes gently close. And we're going to take some gentle breaths through the nose, any speed you like, it doesn't really matter, whatever is comfortable. But you're going to notice your breath as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, see if you can just relax your shoulders a little bit. Or find some place in the body where there might be a little tension. And then when you breathe out, dropping in a little bit, feeling a bit heavier perhaps, letting gravity bring you closer to ground. And perhaps you can use any outside sounds as a nudge, a reminder to turn towards your inner world. To start opening your attention to your body. Notice how you can use each conscious breath as a way to slow down a little bit more. And as you repeat each cycle of breath, see if you can allow your inner world to become a little bit more present for you. What sounds do you hear coming from your body? Perhaps you can hear your pulse. You can hear life itself inside this vessel. And if any thoughts come in that invade, you can just let them float away with that next exhale. Notice the weight of your body on the surface beneath you. Notice that you weigh perhaps on a chair or a mat or a mattress, but eventually that weight goes to the Great Mother, that you are resting on the belly of the earth. And allow that connection to become more significant. Always breathing. And now in this space, may we wish for deep healing for ourselves and for this planet. May we receive the gifts that are given to us, the messages that are delivered to us. And may we embrace the opposites. May we widen our embrace to hold all of humanity in all its conditions. And may each chosen breath be a prayer for peace. And so we're going to take 3 breaths to come back to the room around us. Exploring opening the eyelids ever so gently.
Thank you. That was beautiful. We want to devote as much of our time together as possible to your questions for Anthony. So if at any time during this call you want to learn more about this course, please visit alchemistbreathwork.com to see the full description. And if you have questions for our stellar customer service department, you can contact the customer support team directly at support.theshiftnetwork.com. And so now we're going to dive into questions. If you have a question for Anthony and you haven't already done so, please offer your questions and I'm happy to read them. Please also be aware that we have quite a few questions coming in, so we may not be able to get to all of them during the call. The first question for you is from Eddie, who says, can you speak on how to overcome severe generalized anxiety disorder, which I have suffered daily with physical symptoms in the stomach like butterflies, sadness featured in every tablet on the market? Hypnotherapy, suffered daily all day for 4 years. I have health issues, but I suffered before health issues.
Thank you. And that's Eddie, was it?
Eddie.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. Thank you for that question. And it's a big issue. And the first thing I want to say is thank you for the courage to ask a question like that, because we get to admit something about our state of being that might not be welcome to us. And the other thing is that it's not personal. It feels such a personal experience, but what if it's actually a part of our human condition? It's part of being human to be in relationship with anxiety, and especially general anxiety disorder, which is such an expression of the world we live in, that we actually become the symptom of the world that we live in. The resolution, and I've had it before in my life too, I've had panic attacks and anxiety. And for me, the resolution was breath work, because first of all, what we just did now, giving our attention to our breath, is significant, because we are attending to our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the autonomous nervous system that we don't consciously control. So when we breathe in the way we just did, we're actually activating the rest and digest functions of the body, and that is soothing. Of course, the mind might have its own program, and it might not want to pay the attention that I asked you to pay it to the breath, and that's then a mind game. But if you think about breath and how significant it is, and if you think about how we take it so much for granted, there's such a wide gap between those two realities. So my encouragement for you would be to start a simple breathing practice every day. And I would recommend, in fact, with this course, I believe there's going to be a little audio for you called Transformer Breath, and that is designed to really work with anxiety. And it's really about extending your exhale. To give you the major takeaway, it's about extending your exhale. So if you could develop a practice for yourself and somehow take a measurement of before and after. Write down your anxiety level between 1 and 100, say, before you begin the practice. And then if you do it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, write down your anxiety level afterwards. And most of all, be willing to measure differently. I know one of the most distressing things about anxiety is that it feels futile. We try to escape, and it's a futile escape because we're always measuring how far we are away from where we want to be. But it's very important to also measure how far we've got from where we started. And that's the kind of thinking differently that will really help you. So that's what I would offer to you for your question. And again, thank you for asking it.
Thank you very much. This next question is coming in from a live participant named Jolanda, who says, "Thank you so much for this opportunity to spend this time with you live and to ask you questions. I was wondering what your take is on why the diaphragm can become sluggish or even frozen, and what the best approach is to bring the diaphragm back to health, vitality, enthusiasm, and trustworthiness to support the breathing process."
Thank you, Jolanda. Another great question. And I started to smile. My heart started to smile as I heard it, because almost no matter what question you're going to ask me, I'm going to tell you about breathing, because to me it's the greatest solution that exists. And so how to soften and give ease to the diaphragm? Well, it's going to be a conscious breath again, and it's going to be a long breath. And I would explore quite vigorous breathing, then followed by a more slow and relaxed breath, and to become more sensitive to the subtle elements of what's going on in the body. In the meditation we just did, it was a slight introduction into body awareness. During our course together, we're going to go much deeper. We're going to use the body as our messenger, and we're going to open the body archive, what I call the body archive, which is a data bank of every single thing that happened to us. And there's much that we don't want to remember in our minds, but our body does remember it all. So our process will be much about going into the body and feeling these individual organs and asking them questions, really inquiring as to what is it your diaphragm has for you. It might be tight, it might be uncomfortable, it might be inflexible, it might be in difficulty. And what are the messages it wants you to know? When did that begin for you? What would it look like to explore it and to not get rid of it? You know, it's a bit like the anxiety question of Eddie's. When we seek to get rid of something, we engage in a conversation that probably denies it being able to leave. But if we open up to it and if we embrace it as it is, if we don't make it wrong, then it's going to be more willing to communicate with us. So just like with anxiety, we can transform it into enthusiasm. With any discomfort or any situation in the body that we have, we can use the breath to make an inquiry into the more subtle messages. In our sessions, we'll be amplifying our awareness of the subtle and leaving behind a little bit of the density that we normally live with. So in a nutshell, my encouragement is to go deeply into your diaphragm. Use our breath practices that we'll be doing, but do it whenever you can. Keep asking, what is it you want me to know? If there's something I need to understand, what is it that I can understand? And of course, the diaphragm is, wow, it's such a huge, important muscle, and we want it to be soft. We want it to be supple and flexible. So I hope that we'll be able to do that with you when you're with us.
Thank you for sharing that. And I also just want to say, as I'm listening to you speak, I'm noticing myself paying more attention to my own body. So just now, when you said we want the diaphragm to be soft, I caught myself holding my breath. So thank you for that as well. That just listening to you speak is bringing me into closer contact with my own body. This next question is from Hari, who says, thank you so much for offering this Q&A. Is conscious breathwork compatible with mantra?
Well, mantra is conscious breathwork, first of all. That's the whole point for me, from a breath perspective, of mantra, is that we regulate our breath and we actually breathe together at the same time. And the history of breath work goes back into mantra through several thousands of years. It goes back into Gregorian chant in the Christian traditions. And of course, in Sufism, breath is very, very significant. So I feel that they're distinctly connected. Working with sound as I have in my own past and having studied sound medicine, I think that the sound and breath are the most magnificent combination that there can be. And for all the sound medicines and bowls and bells and rattles and shakers that we've got, the best sound that we've got is our own voice. That vibration that, we innocently just sort of hum or belt in the shower. If we stopped to appreciate ourselves, how kind we're being to ourselves doing that vibration that's going all the way through our body, that free expression that's coming through here, through this place where we've held back so much throughout our lives, to open it and to sing with devotion, to me is the most special thing in the world.
Thank you. We have another question coming in from Izzy, who says, hello and thank you for your work. Last year, my adult son had serious necrotic pneumonia. This has left him with scarring on both lungs, and one of his lungs has changed shape. He struggles to take full breaths. Do you have any advice here, please?
Well, I have to preface this by saying I'm not a doctor. And of course, you've taken doctor's advice, I'm sure, because of what's happened. And it doesn't sound like it's been a pleasant journey for him, Izzy. But what I can say is that the lungs are by nature elastic. And we forget that. So I would be inclined to work with him in a way that would make the stretch very, very gentle. And again, to be measuring the difference of accomplishment rather than to be measuring the sense of loss. That's a trap. If we measure the sense of loss, that will only limit our possibility. So we have to make a really deep inner decision to make a change. Transformation is not skin deep. And that commitment means that we will keep showing up. So what I would recommend for him would be to breathe to his capacity, and then to increase it by maybe 2 or 3% at first, and increase the length of the breath, but also by making it slower, making the exhale slower. So if he makes the exhale slower, his lungs will retain a little bit longer. And so let it be very gentle. And a good exercise that I love to do every morning is to hold my breath, and perhaps we can all do this together. If you just take a big inhale and hold your breath for 5 seconds, and then I'm going to tell you to inhale again. So let's breathe in, inhale just as much as you can, all the way to the top. 2, 3. Inhale more. And then relax and release whenever you're ready. So that will show you that you think you're inhaling all that you can, but actually, if you just stay there, your lungs will get more relaxed, more open, and will give you more space to breathe. So you could play with that exercise, and it doesn't have to take a big breath like you or I would. It could be just that 20% or 30%, and then hold it and then take in a little bit more. It doesn't need to be uncomfortable. And again, like I said earlier to Yolanda, give it attention. Give the problem attention. Don't ignore it. Remember, our tendency in the Western world is to take a pill or to take medicine from the outside. But the breath is the most natural medicine that we can possibly have. So go into the body, inquire of the lungs, how are you today? I've had digestive issues as an adult in my large intestine, so I call my colon Casper. I've got Casper the colon I talk to him. And I ask him, how are you today? And I ask him to do me favors sometimes when it might be troublesome. So there is a way we can learn to re-identify with these parts of our body because they're parts of our being. And they really want our love. That's really where this goes, is we get to give love to those parts of us that we might be inclined to condemn. So that would be my wish for him, and that it may bring a result for him.
Thank you so much. And I just want to take a moment to anyone who has just joined us to share that you are welcome at any time during this session to go online to alchemistbreathwork.com, where you can read a detailed description of each of the modules that are planned for this course. So moving on to the next question, which is from Franz, who says, can you speak a bit about how conscious breathwork increases the resilience and resistance of the body?
Wow. Well, it's doing a whole bunch of things to the body, Franz. We're, first of all, increasing blood flow, and we're increasing oxygen in the blood. And especially with this last pandemic that's been happening, you can understand the importance of that as a way of being. So if we can raise our oxygenation in the blood by 1%, it's a huge amount. And we can if we breathe consciously. Now, there are different ways of breathing. There are hundreds of different ways of breathing. And my encouragement is for you to start watching the way you do breathe in any given circumstance. For example, when Eddie asked about anxiety, if you're feeling anxious, you're not breathing. In fact, Fritz Perls said that anxiety is enthusiasm without the breath. So if you're feeling anxious and you have a short breath, then you can adapt yourself by elongating your breath. And to quote Fritz Perls, who's the founder of Gestalt therapy, you would be transforming your anxiety into enthusiasm. And I agree with that. Now, if your immune system is subdued, it is possibly connected to the amount of stressors that are out there and the way that you manage them. And each time that you are in any degree of relationship with trauma, you are compromising your immune system. The reason that you're compromising your immune system is because your brain remembers trauma, and as soon as it feels the threat, an impending threat of something that might have happened before, it's going to start pumping out hormones, chemicals like cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, that all go to work. They go to work to go take care of the problem. That's why adrenaline sometimes gives us that strength that we could lift up a car if it was to save our own child underneath. When the body is functioning in that way, it is completely ignoring that rest and digest system that I spoke about earlier. So conscious breath work is a great way to stay present, because I'll challenge you to breathe into the future or breathe into the past. You can't. You can only breathe into now. So if you give your attention to your breath, you're going to be present. And being present means that you're not going to be thrown by outside circumstances. You're going to stay awake and alert, and you're going to stay in a proper rest and digest condition. Now, I've been doing this for years, and I'm probably up to about, 14% breath awareness. I would love to be 90%. I do this work so I can get more. I teach people how to breathe because I need to learn how to breathe, honestly. And the more I use it in my daily life outside of the sessions that I do, the more I find that my rest and digest is activated and the calmer I get. And generally, the better my immune system becomes. As to the other stimuli for the immune system, those would be things like breath holds, like the Wim Hof practice, which is a great way to build up strength and immunity. And you can actually, even after breathing 30 times and doing a breath hold, you can accomplish things like, if you can do 10 sit-ups, or normally you can do all of a sudden 25 or 30. It actually builds your strength. On the other hand, athletic breathwork practices would be strictly breathing through the nose. And at the time when you're panting and you're running and you're naturally breathing through the mouth, it's actually much better for you to breathe through the nose. So there are many ways that we can use the breath to improve our health. And the last one I'll give you, especially considering the virus that's been going around the world, is to breathe slowly in and out through the nose, because that actually raises your nitric oxide levels, and that stimulates your immune system in your upper respiratory tract. So it's a great breath to keep with you all the time, to know that you're breathing, give your awareness to your breath, and breathe a very slow breath through the nose. I hope that gives you some answers to your question.
It was wonderful, and it also sparked about 3 other questions. So hopefully we have time to get to them. Peggy would like to know, how can conscious breath work help with anger?
Oh, wow. Well, what do you do when you're angry? Are you breathing? When you're angry, here's the deal, because when you're activated, and this is going to be something we're going to visit in our training together. But when you're activated, you don't calm down as quickly as you go up, do you? I mean, you feel that surge of adrenaline, and even though you know you shouldn't say things, you are still going to say them. And even though, get this, even though you know that if you took 10 calm breaths, you could reevaluate your anger, you won't. You'll choose not to. And so we get to play with our ego. We get to explore our mind a little bit. And I believe that the best thing, first of all, in a nutshell, the best thing you can do if you feel angry is to take 10 slow breaths. If you're angry with someone, I really encourage you to make a contract with them, especially if it's your beloved, that if you ever get to that point of speechless anger, that either of you can call upon the other to take 10 breaths together and look at each other in the eyes. And if you can take those breaths through your mouth, then that encourages a sense of vulnerability. You will see your beloved go through all kinds of changes. What you can understand in just that short period of time is that she or he has a heart just like yours that wants to be loved unconditionally and wants to love you back abundantly, ridiculously abundantly, without any limit at all. So that would be my advice of how to use the breath when you're feeling angry.
Thank you. I love that response, and thank you for the reminder from me and my partner. It's beautiful. Amina would like to know if you can possibly throw some light on the unified field of conscious connected breathwork.
That's an interesting question. I love these questions. They come from all different directions, and they're all so interesting. Okay, you're going to have to repeat that phrase for me again. The unified field of conscious connected breathwork.
Yes.
I think that question is relevant because, especially because of what's happening with Black Lives Matter right now, with BIPOC. I think it's a really valid question because the breath knows no hierarchy. It doesn't favor anybody. And it's something that we are all thoroughly dependent on. So the unified field of conscious connected breathwork, I think it's a unified field. It's that sense of oneness that we crave for in this dualistic life that we live. And my experience, because I facilitate hundreds of people every week breathing, is that when we breathe together, we do enter that unified field inside ourselves during a session. And then, of course, as a result of that, we're able to have that quality of presence for other people. So we sense a brotherhood and a sisterhood that is way beyond our normal perception. So the unified field, I believe, is independent of breath. That's underneath all of the distractions and the dualistic confusion that we live in as we live our lives on this earthly plane. But I do believe that we connect to the unified field when we breathe. We draw from it. And if we're lucky in a breath session, we also open the subconscious, that archive that's full of very old data. And it can be reprogrammed. It can be reprogrammed by the universal field or quantum field, or by the God of your understanding, whatever word you want to use, it doesn't matter. But when we inspire, when we breathe in spirit, because that's where the word comes from, right? What's going to happen? You know, here I am, I'm the mechanic, I'm doing this in my life, I'm there on time, I'm showing up, I'm doing my work, I'm earning my money. But where's my spirit? How am I nourishing my spirit? I don't know. I can go into a belief system or a church and pray and receive messages through a priest or an imam or whoever it might be. But breath in me is different than that. It's so direct, it's so intimate that for me, it's become my biggest teacher.
Thank you very much. Diane would like to know what changes to blood chemistry occur with prolonged conscious breathing.
You need to know, it depends what your breath is, first of all. The breath that we're going to be using principally, although we're going to be discovering some other ones together, but the breath that we're going to be using principally during our training together is a conscious connected breath through the mouth. And the effects that that would have on your bloodstream and on your brain, I can describe to you. First of all, I said earlier, you're going to have your blood flow increased, and you're going to increase the oxygen levels in your blood. But the consequence of that is you're going to decrease the carbon dioxide levels in your blood. And sometimes, especially if you're a newbie, that can show up physically with this symptom that's called tetany. And this is because your carbon dioxide is having to lower in order to accommodate the increased oxygen level. So that's essentially what's happening with the blood. But the blood is different than the rest of the body. And this is why the Wim Hof holds are so valuable, because that allows your oxygen levels in your blood to subside, and to the point that the carbon dioxide is sufficient again, at which point the oxygen can then be exported into the body, perhaps more importantly into the brain. So with this particular breath style that we use, you couldn't do it endlessly. It would not be good for you to do it endlessly. It's better to have it bookended with a beginning and an end, so you have your experience and you come out of it. Then what I recommend for a lot of people is to do a small practice that I have my students do that are training to become facilitators, and that is to do 3 minutes of that conscious connective breath, and then free write for 10 minutes with a pen or on your keyboard, whatever it is that works for you. But spend 10 minutes, set an alarm so you don't have to think about it again, and then see what happens after a period of a few days. Now, other breath styles are going to have other effects. And there's so many that it's a lifetime journey to discover them all. But in general, you can lower your blood pressure. You can slow your pulse rate by a conscious breath through the nose. And it doesn't actually even need to be connected. The connection itself is perhaps the most significant aspect of raising the oxygen in the bloodstream is the actual connection of the breath. And that means without pausing, means you're always breathing in or out. You never pause. And my invitation is for you to start watching how often you pause now, because it's more often than not.
Thank you so much. A quick reminder for everyone listening that you can learn more about this course and register online at alchemistbreathwork.com. This next question is from Alexis, and it's kind of a long one, but I think it's got several juicy parts. So let me know if you need me to repeat any portions. Alexis says, thank you for sharing this work, as it's so very needed. I've taken a few breathwork classes before. Can you share which method or lineage of breathwork we will be studying? And then how does touch play into how deep we can access? I've had some deeply profound experiences, but more in person with light hands-on work. And then also, are the classes going to be interactive?
Thank you. So there are 3 parts to that question, if I'm right. And I first one, but
Did we? Hi, you froze for a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got the last 2 parts of the question, which was about.
Need the first one?
Yeah, give me all 3 in bullet points again, would you?
Okay.
One was touch, one was interactivity, and the first one was.
What is the lineage of breathwork that everyone is going to be studying in the course?
Okay, great. Thank you. Alexis, the breath that we experience in the West, it really is born of 2 sources. One is Stan Grof and holotropic breathwork, and the other one is Leonard Orr, who just recently passed, and that he was the father of rebirthing. I've experienced both, and so what I've done is I've actually hybridized them. I actually call it hollow birthing because it combines some of the elements of holotropic and some of the elements of rebirthing. And we do touch. If we're physically in front of people or with people, we do use touch. What you can do in the internet, with the internet as it is you can use self-touch, and I encourage you to do that while you're breathing. That could be as simple as just placing a hand on your body, wherever it is that you might be needing sustenance. You'll be noticing one of our meditations is called the Sweet Spot Meditation, which is a giveaway, and you'll be able to use that as your own practice. And that's really about using techniques of pendulation and titration, which means that we resource in a kind and gentle way, and then we go further into our endeavor of exploration again. And if we feel at any time a sense of overwhelm, that we come back to that sweet spot again and we resource again. So the origins of this breath work were officially born by the parenthood of both Stan Grof and Leonard Orr. But the alchemy of breath, what I practice, is a combination of many things. As Nadira said earlier on, it's a combination of the study of miracles. It's a hypnotherapy for many years. My own personal discoveries in psychotherapy and studying. I'm a Jungian nut. I love Carl Jung and what he managed to do for us in the world. So working with the shadow a lot in my life, a lot of inner child work, and it's all brought into almost every session. It's just part of who I am and what alchemy of breath has become. The final part of your question was the interactivity. Yes, indeed, I want to have some interactivity, and I want to challenge you. Watch out, because I ask questions. That's really how I teach. It's not about me delivering information to you. It's really how can I become your partner in inquiry? And what are the questions that I can ask that can be of value to you to consider? Answers tend to close off the discussion and we kind of accumulate information. Questions instead tend to ignite a curiosity. And so if you're going to be joining us, I really encourage you to bring a child's mind, to bring a curious mind. And we'll be doing inner child work too, which is one of my favorite things ever to do. So I hope that you can join us for that. And I hope I've answered your three parts: lineage, touch, and interactivity.
Beautifully done. Thank you very much. So we're going to have time for one or two. You're doing an excellent job. We're going to have time for one or two more questions, but before we take those, I just want to mention conscious breath work once more. This is going to be a powerfully transformative 7-week journey under Anthony's obviously compassionate guidance. This 7-week course takes place on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, starting Tuesday, June 16th. If for any reason you cannot join us live, you won't miss the teachings. You will receive audio and video replays, transcripts, and all course handouts via your course homepage. And I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on our courses, giving a full 2 weeks, so until June 30th in this case, to make sure you absolutely love it. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect via a private Facebook community group, so you can stay connected with one another. Everyone who registers for the course will receive the Conscious Breathwork bonus collection, which include Breathing Love from Shame to Strength, a video dialogue with Anthony, Beginning of the Day Breath Practice, a short audio recording from Anthony, End of the Day Practice, which is another audio recording, and 12 Breaths to Freedom and Equanimity, an ebook by Anthony. And then if you register by June 9th, so tomorrow, you will also receive the bonus sweet spot meditation that Anthony was speaking about a little bit earlier in this session. Anthony, can you share a bit about what you are most looking forward to in this upcoming course?
Oh, well, I'm so excited to be with you guys at Shift, because the audience that you have is a relatively new one to me, and I'm just thrilled to be able to bring you this, both the content and the methodology, because it's one thing to learn, but to actually inquire so deeply into our own being, and then to embody the new awarenesses that we discover, the combination of discourse and then breathing, it just allows us to understand it in a multi-dimensional way. And it doesn't just come into the brain, it comes into the body. And this archive that I spoke about can be replenished. It can be replenished with some of the most important information that's available. So I'm excited about combining these two together. The inquiry that we're going to be making, this journey from birth to death that we're going to be making, and the other thing that excites me is the chance for those of you that are younger to be able to benefit from having a whole life experience, to be virtually experiencing your crone-ship or your mastery or even your death. And those of you that are elders, that you can revisit those parts of your life that may need some love, they may need some of your own attention. So to me, this is my life. This is my love to do this work, and I hope that we get to do it together.
Thank you so much. And I also just want to share my appreciation. We have another couple questions, but I wanted to take this moment and share my appreciation of you speaking about remaining present with the pain and the challenge that people may be encountering in their own bodies. I'm really seeing ways that can be applied to so much of what's happening in the world around us. So thank you for that statement. Yeah. This next question is from Annie Ruth, who says, what would be the fundamental difference or addition with the shift course in terms of content from your facilitator training? So how is this similar to or different from your facilitator training?
That's really a great question. My facilitator training for our students is obviously, it's practically about learning how to facilitate. So all the little nuances of how to hold a group virtually or physically or with one-to-one work too. And the other part of that training is really about the inner journey. And the material that we're going to be covering during this 7 days is actually mostly new from our inner journey. It's being our inner journey is actually being restructured in the training, and it's going to be based on these 7 sessions that we're having. So it's going to be the level 2 of our journey, and there's not really any, maybe about 10% of the material will be similar or related to the training. There was one thing that I wanted to say. Yes, this course that we're going to be taking, Journey of the Alchemist, is actually taken mostly from 2 of my last physical retreats that we did, our breath camps that we do 4 times a year. And we added on the Alchemist as a journey after that. And that was a 7-day intensive retreat. And it was so intense that I wanted to bring it online, because you need time with the quantity of processing that goes on. You need time in between to be able to reflect on it and dream about it and write about it and be with it, and to notice during your daily life how what we cover is being played out, not just in yourself, but in other people around you. So I didn't want to do this journey live anymore on land, because it's too much to absorb in a short period of time. 7 weeks is the perfect amount of time that you can spend your first day or 2 after a class going, kind of letting the pieces of the jigsaw fall into place. And then the next 2 or 3 days going, okay, I can see how I can use this. And then finally coming back to the next class ready to absorb your next level. And so each step is taking us into another level.
Thank you very much. And our final question is from Amy, who says, how does one deal with trauma that may be triggered during an intense breathwork session? And similarly, what happens when you enter an altered state during breathwork?
Well, the last part first, whatever happens will be altered. For sure. But I think the trauma issue is a very important one. And And I want to speak to it because it's not necessary to experience trauma in breathwork. And I know that there are some facilitators out there in the world that believe that the measure of their success might be by virtue of the impact that it has. And that's not the way I approach breathwork. I believe it can actually be very gentle. In essence, why would you go harvest more than you can carry back home? There's no need to push yourself into too much of an altered state if you're not ready to do so. You can do it with breath work. You know that you can. But the point isn't to go for impact. Even though our lives are so filled with stimuli that we need shocks to wake us up, please don't consider breath work as an ayahuasca journey, perhaps. It's much more gentle and you're much more in control of it. Now, the issue of trauma itself is what draws me to this work, and we will be touching upon trauma deeply. Around the middle of the 7 weeks, we're going to be visiting our inner child. And the ugliness of trauma is that once we've experienced it once, whenever it gets triggered, it doesn't get better. It actually gets worse. So we're not here to induce trauma in any way. We're here to release trauma. And that will happen naturally with the body as you breathe, if you're gentle and conscious with it. And it will also happen by virtue of the exercises that we'll be doing together that will allow you to visit parts of your being that were traumatized, but not having to relive the experience. It's not necessary or good to relive the experience. So my caution is to anybody who feels like, and that would perhaps be more of a Freudian approach, I've got to go back there and dig it up. You know, you can do that. I've done that in my life. It works. But I've spent 40 years finding ways that work without it having to be drama, without it having to be adrenaline inducing. It can be a very gentle experience and still be powerful. With something as gentle as the breath, we can rearrange our whole psyche. There's no point in trying to do it in one go. That's not to say you won't have amazing experiences in one go, but I don't want to sell you a course about getting high. You will get high, but because of who you are, not because of me. That's because of who you are and how willing you are to explore the realms of your being that you may not yet have seen or experienced. So I love dealing with trauma. It's my favorite thing ever. And some of you may have seen the Breathwork Summit and my dear colleague Giten Tonkov, who specializes in physical trauma release. And we work a lot together because I deal with the emotional and the psychic aspects as well. So trauma is my main reason for doing this. I want the world to love, and it can't love until it can love itself. None of us can, and we can't love that person behind our traumas unless we make a concerted effort to go back and rescue her or rescue him, so we can be free of those old patterns that keep us creating this horrid destruction that exists out there in the world now. So, sorry, I got a bit serious there, but this is serious stuff, and the only way we're going to get out of it is to go through it, to hold it, to love it, to learn to love those more challenging parts of who we are.
Thank you. I really wanted to make sure that we didn't conclude the call without touching on that, because it did seem like such a rich question. So thank you very much for your response. Yeah. This has been Such a beautiful hour with you. And I want to thank you to everyone who has been with us on the call. And thank you to you, Anthony, for all of your sharing and for your wisdom that came through on the call today. So for everyone who is listening, Conscious Breathwork starts next week, Tuesday, June 16th. And again, please visit alchemistbreathwork.com to learn more or to register. And Anthony, we've got a few minutes left. Do you have any final words for our listeners?
Oh, what is my word for today? Well, it's about what's happening right now. When COVID first came, the question that I was asking my breathers was, what is the gift? What is the gift? What if there's a gift here in all of this? What might it be? And I know there's been a lot of suffering too, but there have been gifts. There have been gifts for each of us as individual people. And I hear that every day. Perhaps the biggest gift of all is that it's really prepared us for what is happening right now. Prepared us to understand that what we see playing out on the world stage right now affects every single one of us. Whatever color or preference we may be, we are all affected, and we all get to join together in this inquiry. This is a very valid moment. I pray it will be as pivotal as it promises to be right now, but it can only be so if we look inside our own soul and uncover the ways that we have been abusers in the past, no matter what color or creed we are. Our own trauma has made us into less human beings than we could be. It's made us less loving, it's made us less caring, and we all get to hold our hand up to that, no matter who we are. So may these people who have suffered for generations, decades, centuries, may that suffering result in some new hope for humanity. That's my biggest prayer of all. May we learn our lessons and start afresh.
Thank you. I don't even have anything to say after that. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. And on behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well, and I look forward to having you on this course or one in the future. Take care.